Here we have something strange. I'm not sure if this is a bunker or if it's just a pile of sand with some trees. Anyway, I was trying to film with the GoPro, but the GoPro's battery suddenly went flat. I'll have to recharge it. At least I think the battery is empty, so I'm using the other camera. And we are in a rather interesting place. This is the Twente airfield, but from a completely different side. This is a recently been made public area. This is an old airstrip that was built by the Germans, and it apparently has really weird bricks in it. But there is a really interesting bunker up ahead. But I'm really curious if that hill there, if that is just a hill or if it is another disguised bunker. I can't see it because it's behind a fence. It's very misty weather and there's no one about, which means that's perfect for me. And here's some kind of park. And this park is part of an estate that did not originally have a house, but the Germans apparently built a house there, but that house is not visible. But there you can see there's a pond. So there's a nice pond. And this area has been made public in April, so it's less than a year ago that this became accessible. And right there in the distance, I don't think it's visible with the mist, are two former kerosene fuel depot bunkers. They used to store fuel for the planes there. But that's not what we're for, because right there is a bunker, and that one is rather big, and it's got some concrete damage too. Let's see if we can still get there. In the summer it was accessible to an extent, but now they've covered it up with a fence. Oh, bummer. In the summer that fence wasn't there. Well, it was slightly different than now. You can see that fence over there. It used to go like that. It was kind of an L shape. The old fence was over there and this part was accessible. And now they've altered the fence, so you can't reach this anymore. What a bummer. But I've made photos of this in the summer, and there are some really nice cracks in the concrete on the rear side. At least you can still see the front of the building. But yeah, it's a bit sad that they've altered the fence. And right there is a really big crack that is actually visible. So if we zoom in, we can see a really big crack in the side of the wall, and there's also some kind of salt deposit, what it looks like. So that's rather interesting, but sadly we can't walk around it anymore because they've changed this fence. But yeah, I think that was an interesting bit to show. Oh, and right there in the entrance there's also a little bit of damage. On the photos that I've made in April, you can see this in much more detail. And there's also a few bricks in the ceiling that they've used to support the rebar. And as you can see, the quality of the concrete is really not that great. Some of the rebar kind of shows up and is exposed. Yeah, they didn't really take much attention to the quality of the workmanship, because this is a German built bunker. But yeah, at least it's visible, but not really accessible anymore. And that's a bit of a bummer. But this entire area has a cycling path, but walking that path is a bit long. I'm not going to do that now. And there's a few more interesting things over there. So here we have a part of that German rolbaan with glow-in-the-dark bricks. These bricks that you see here, those white ones, they used to light up if they were shined on by a lamp of an airplane. And it's just a sort of reflective material. I'm not really sure what it is. It looks like email. I think it's just a really smooth material. And here we have one of those posts for guard posts made of precast concrete. It's just one panel, one side panel, a roof panel, and a circular ring-shaped structure. And you can tell this is precast concrete because those edges are not 90 degrees. They have a bit of a slanting to them, and it has something to do with the formwork. This is very common in precast concrete production, to give openings a slight slant to them. It makes them easier to remove from the mold. And here you can see the lifting eyelets, and there's even a really nicely detailed recessed area, so that this panel sits nice and firm and can't shift about. And this is also really nicely detailed. This is a drip recess for water droplets. So let's go in it. And this is also another interesting detail. So it's probably something to do with the formwork. So there's a little bit of concrete chipped off. And this is the pouring side of the concrete, and this is probably the mold side. Oh hey, there's a bit of rust. Probably a bit of rebar, a little bit too close to the surface. And this is just, well, a really smoothly textured concrete. This is essentially the mold side, and this is the inside. And this looks like a casting surface. This is very smooth, the ceiling. And here you can see a little bit more of those recessed details. And they would have made, well, hundreds of these. They're all standardized. But this concrete surface is definitely rougher than this. Oh, there's even some air bubbles indicating that the concrete was not compacted properly. It is generally well compacted considering the smoothness and the density, but they missed a few spots here. And here we have another transformer building, at least a couple of different ones. And this is what I tried to film with the GoPro, but the battery immediately failed. The GoPro started beeping, so I knew something was wrong, although initially it sounded like it just acknowledged recording. So this is the start of the area. If you go down that path, you reach a restaurant which is on a small side road. That's where I also parked the car. But this transformer building is a post-war structure. I don't know when it was built. I think 1950s, maybe 1960s. It is actually rather well preserved. And I think it's also still in use, considering the fairly modern door locks. I think the probability is very high that they still use it. And also this transformer building is larger than the ones that the Germans built. And this is another, well, weird precast building that I don't know what it's for, but it actually has something of a type shield on there. It is a name of a manufacturer, and it was built in 1995, and it has information on there about the weight, the order number, and it says the name of the manufacturer. I hope this is clear enough, otherwise I will make a photo of this. But yeah, this thing was put there in 1995 or thereabouts, and it's precast, as you can see, and it has a kind of washed out aggregate surface texture that was very fashionable in the 1970s. And here we go around the back, and here's another really interesting thing. A few lights or switches, apparently for the lighting of the something indicating that the lights on the runway are on, because this says baanverlichting aan. This means runway lights on, and this is a sort of error lamp, and this is a switch for something, also probably for the lights. And this is a something that used to be a doorway and that they've simply closed up with bricks. And well, at the back there's not much. Here's a few of those, well, openings that probably were doorways that they've closed up, because there's still a header bond above there. So that's interesting. I'm not sure if those have always been doors. It looks like they used to be doors, but they've simply closed them.